Thank you for listening to Balanced Black Girl. My name is Les. I am your host, and I appreciate you tapping in. So, I am coming at you with a special bonus episode this Friday in partnership with Nike. Now, today I want to talk about the little summer glow up journey that I am embarking on. I have decided that this summer I want to pour into myself more and become the healthiest, happiest, hottest version of myself by my birthday at the end of the summer. Now, at the end of this summer, it's kind of a big birthday for me. I'm turning 35. And for whatever reason, I'm feeling more ways about turning 35 than I felt about turning 30. And I think it's because I had so much messaging in my head around turning 30 that it was a good thing. You know, I grew up in the era of the movie 13 going on 30. And so 30, flirty, thriving. When I turned 30, I didn't freak out about it because I thought, oh, I'm 30, flirty, thriving. That's cute. And then the second we started getting older than 30, I was like, oh, wait a minute. 30 is cute. Being in my 30s, is that cute? I don't know. And then my mid 30s, is that cute? I don't know. I've been having all sorts of feelings about it. If you listen to the podcast, you've probably heard because I bring it up quite a bit. But I have decided that instead of feeling a way about it, I'm going to feel my best about it. And I'm going to take the next few months to be my healthiest, happiest, hottest self. Now, if you're familiar with my story, I'm not necessarily new to these wellness girly streets. I've been doing this stuff since before the term wellness girly was even a thing. I became interested in wellness when I was in college, and it was really the summer of 2010, which was the summer between my junior and senior year of college, that a lot of this became habit for me. That was when I became really interested in eating healthy food and cooking more for myself. That was when I started my consistent exercise routine that I've maintained for a decade and a half since. And that was when I really started building the foundational blocks that my lifestyle and even this podcast were built upon. However, I've found that being consistent with a wellness routine, in order to do that, I have had to ebb and flow and let my routine change as my life has changed. And I think for a lot of people, when they have a hard time being consistent with wellness, it's because of that. So for me, what worked when I was 20 and I was just getting into this is no longer effective for me as I'm 34, almost 35. And if I were to try to still do those things my 20-year-old self did, I would be super frustrated and I would have given up. So I think having the ability to pivot in my routine, to constantly audit it and edit it and look at it and say, okay, what is serving me? What isn't serving me? What is it that I truly need right now out of wellness? And being able to apply and make those changes has been the biggest game changer for me in terms of being consistent with wellness as I've gotten older. And it's how I've been able to maintain all of these habits, is my ability to change in them. So when I was in college and I was first getting into wellness, everything looked so different than it does now. I was super broke, as most college students are. I didn't necessarily have a lot of resources to buy a lot of groceries, also a lot of supplements, and the things that we do now just weren't readily available back then. Information wasn't readily as accessible then. So I went back to basics and I did the best I could with what I had. If I focused on drinking a lot of water and alternating maybe the cocktails that I was drinking when I was going out and partying with glasses of water, that was a huge step for me in my wellness routine. Or I couldn't necessarily afford a gym membership or to take classes somewhere. So I would use the rec center at school and I would focus on the classes that were offered through my school because I couldn't necessarily afford studios. And that was good enough because that was what I could do. Fast forward a couple of years, when I was a young professional, I was in my first job out of college. I had a really long commute, an office job. I didn't have as much flexibility. Then I really relied on early mornings to be well. I would be really disciplined about packing my gym bag the night before, getting up early, going to work out before work. I would be really disciplined about meal prepping so that I had healthy lunches and healthy meals on hand because I didn't have a ton of time in my day-to-day between working and commuting to do those things. And now I'm in an entirely different season in my life where I have a lot more flexibility. I'm now self-employed. I'm a little bit older. I'm not commuting. I'm wanting different things. And so I'm now in real time kind of pivoting my wellness routine to be different than what it once was, because that prior version where I was super regimented about having a really tight schedule isn't necessarily serving me anymore. And something that I'm thinking about a lot now that I'm getting a little bit older is longevity. I am entering my mid 30s, and this is really the time where the rubber meets the road. Now, I want to keep this light. I want to keep it cute. I want to keep it fun, and I will. But something that is very real is as we get older, that is when health problems start to really come to the forefront. And when I think about people in my family, I think about family members I've had who have had really severe health issues, who have succumbed to those health issues, who were not a lot older than I am now when those things started. So, a lot of my motivation and a lot of my why around why I'm doing this, of course, I want to have a hot girl summer. I want to look cute. I want to pop out. I want to do all of those things. But I also want a healthy heart. I also want joints that move and that I'm able to keep going as long as possible. I want healthy hormones so that as I head towards perimenopause and menopause, I feel as stable and as balanced as possible. And this is really the time in our lives where what we're doing really, really matters. Because when you're in your teens, when you're in your 20s, you have a little bit more wiggle room. You have a little bit more bounce back. It's a little bit easier to put on muscle when you're in your 20s. Actually, I would say your 20s is the best time to put on muscle because that is what your body wants to do. So if you are in your 20s, you should absolutely be focusing on strength training and building and maintaining as much muscle as possible because it's going to be easy for you to do so. And it's much easier to maintain muscle that you built in your 20s than it is to try and build muscle later on when your body is a little bit more resistant to it. As a little side note, but you can get away with having maybe a little bit less sleep. You can get away with going out a little bit more. Something that I used to be able to get away with in my 20s that I absolutely cannot get away with now is not stretching after a workout. I used to go to the gym all the time, and this is bad, especially as a personal trainer. I knew better, but again, I was short on time. I would work out and I would hit a little 1-2 stretch and be out of there, like barely stretch, not anything. And I would feel fine. Now, if I try that, my body will be saying uncle. It will be screaming. I will be stiff. I will be sore for days. So as you get a little bit older, your body in some ways is kind of like a car. It just requires a little bit more maintenance to continue operating and running smoothly. So for me, that is really the why behind my summer glow up. But I do think that summer can be a really great time to look at your habits and to make sure that they're still serving you because we feel a little bit more active during the summer. We have more energy. We're a little more motivated. The days are a little bit longer. So regardless of how old you are, whether you have a birthday or not, I invite you to join me in looking at your habits and seeing what is going to serve you best. Now, for this glow up that I'm doing, I have put it into 3 main categories. I have the physical, I have the emotional, and then I have kind of the dreamy, fun, spiritual side. So, we're going to start off by talking about the physical glow up. And that is because how you feel physically manifests into so many other things in your life. I've been reflecting a lot on my life, my mindset, my career, how I've been able to get to certain places in my life, how I've been able to just start things or move across the country or take certain leaps. And I realized that my ability to do so purely comes from my exercise practice. This is going to sound super dramatic, but it's true. I started exercising consistently when I was 20. And at that point, I noticed such a change in myself when it came to how I talked to myself, when it came to my personality, when it came to my ability to believe in myself, when it came to my ability to be motivated. Up until the age of 20, I was the most insecure, risk-averse, bashful, fearful person. I did not believe in myself. I did not ever take any risks. Everything that I did was all about being really safe and really small and really contained and afraid of anything going wrong, being afraid of any sort of failure, any sort of rejection. And when I started moving my body, that really helped me push those limits a little bit because when you start being able to do things physically that you thought you couldn't do, it then permeates into every other area of your life. When you are able to run a little bit faster, when you're able to do a push-up on your toes for the first time or do a pull-up for the first time, that's maybe the most empowering feeling ever. And then you start feeling like, well, I can do anything then. I did a push-up on my toes. Yeah, I can start that podcast. Yeah, I can start that business. Yeah, I can move to that new city. How hard can it be? Because I can now do these things that I once thought I couldn't do. So I get asked from people all the time, well, how do I put myself out there? Well, how do I move to a new city? How do I go to events and introduce myself to people? And I feel like if you are having those concerns, the best thing you can do is start a consistent exercise practice, because exercising and putting in the reps to move your body on a regular basis is like putting deposits into a bank account that helps you believe in yourself. So I think that movement should be the foundation. If we're building like a glow up pyramid, movement needs to be the foundation of that. And I'm not necessarily talking about weight. I'm not talking about how your body looks. I'm not talking about getting snatched. I'm not talking about any of that. If that motivates you and if that appeals to you, that is fine, but that's not what we're doing. We're literally creating the foundation to feel our best. And how we feel our best mentally and physically is by moving our bodies in whatever way that we can. So my current workout routine these days, because I'm going to get super granular, I'm going to tell y'all exactly what I'm doing for wellness these days. If you're curious, my current workout routine focuses predominantly on strength training and on walking. So I'm going to get really detailed on what that's looking like these days. So right now I'm strength training 3 days a week, typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On Monday and Fridays, I am doing predominantly lower body focused workouts. And again, this is a very specific reason, or I'm doing that for a very specific reason related to my age. As you age, having as much healthy muscle mass on your frame as possible is really important for healthy aging. It is important for strong bones. It is important for having a healthy metabolism as you head into things like menopause. Having healthy muscle is that girl. It is so important for having a healthy body. And your biggest muscle groups in your body and the strongest muscles in your body happen to be in your legs. So training your legs, especially as a woman, having a strong lower body is really important. So 2 days a week, usually Monday and Friday, depending on how I'm feeling, I will do lower body focused workouts. So that is where I will be lifting heavy weights. I will be doing things like squats. I will be doing lunges. I will be doing deadlifts. I will be doing hip hinges to really challenge the muscles in my lower body and to keep them super strong so that I can keep my metabolism revving. And then on Wednesdays, I will usually do a full body lift. So that's where I'll be lifting upper. That's where I'll be lifting lower. That's where I'll be working a bit on core and on grip strength, again, because that's really important for age. We want to make sure that we're able to lift things. We want to make sure that we're able to grip things. Our grip strength can decrease with age. And so lifting weights full body really, really helps with that. Now, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's where I focus a bit more on stretching and mobility. A very humbling thing to focus on as you age. Right now, my favorite way to do this has been Pilates, and I'm talking about real Pilates. I'm not talking about Legree. I'm not talking about some of these things that are Pilates adjacent. I'm talking about real Pilates, like classical Pilates, contemporary Pilates, nothing that is Pilates adjacent. So on Tuesdays, I really like doing reformer Pilates classes. And on Thursdays, I like doing mat Pilates classes. And I actually think it's important to have both because they challenge your body in entirely different ways. So reformer Pilates really helps you move through a full range of motion because you have the straps, you have the reformer that really supports your body through a movement that would be really hard to do on its own. I actually think it is the easier version of Pilates, and I find that it's really good for mobility and for really building up my core strength. And then mat Pilates, I actually think is a lot harder than reformer Pilates because you're doing these movements and you don't have those straps and the machine helping you out. It's you and you. It's you and that mat and God, and that's it. And some of them movements, you're going to be praying the whole time because they're really hard. It's really hard to move your leg in a full circle without it being in a strap with some counterweight to support you. But again, super important for muscular endurance and core strength. And I found that since working on my core through Pilates, it has been so, so helpful for helping me alleviate lower back pain. I had an old injury where I threw my back out in high school and I had severe low back pain for many years. And focusing on core strength and strengthening my low back with gentle movement like Pilates has been so, so helpful for helping me heal that. I think that we don't necessarily have to be in pain as we age. Now, There are, of course, circumstances where people have health conditions that, cause pain, where people have injuries. Like I mentioned, I have an old back pain injury that causes some pain. So in those instances, yes, we have to take care of our bodies to manage those symptoms and conditions, but we don't necessarily have to be in pain just from getting older if we don't have a specific injury or condition that is like lending itself to that. It's just going to require taking care of your body in different ways. So it's going to require maybe doing a little bit more stretching than you want to do, or doing a bit more core work to keep your low back healthy as you age. But really, my goal is to try to alleviate and avoid as much pain as possible. So that workout routine that I'm doing now looks super different than my mid to late 20s, where I was doing tons of HIIT and CrossFit and all of these like really intense exercises because I was just interested in being as strong as possible and jumping high as possible and being as lean as possible. And that was totally fine for that time. But now that I'm a little older, the car has a little more miles on it, I'm having to redo and rethink how I maintain it. And so doing things that are a little bit more gentle and easy on my body and are really building up strength for that next phase of my life are a big part of my summer glow up and honestly just life glow up beyond that. Now, in addition to me doing my strength training, I also have what's called a fun pillar. So I have my strength training pillar, I have my mobility pillar, and then I have my fun pillar. And the most important form of movement in my fun pillar is walking. I have been a walking machine really the past couple of years. The pandemic really helped me start walking more because there was a time where there wasn't really anything else that we could do. And before that, I wasn't really much of a walker. I would honestly go to the gym, I would work out for about an hour, and then I would be super sedentary the rest of the day. And as I get older, I realize that my body just doesn't like that. I actually don't think anyone's body likes that. I don't think that our bodies are designed for that. And 1 hour of working out at the gym or doing Pilates is not going to offset the effects of being sedentary all day long. And so as I get older, I'm realizing the importance of moving throughout the day. So my favorite way to do that, especially over the past few years, is walking. I have had to be really intentional about walking in the past, particularly when I had a corporate job. So I would put time on my calendar to get up and take a walk, or I would change my Slack status to on a walk so that people knew that I was away from my desk for a few minutes. And I would just take really short breaks, 10 to 15 minutes here and there to walk throughout the day. When I worked in office buildings, I would refill my water bottle, or I would go to the bathroom on another floor and I would take the stairs to do so. So there was one job I had where I worked on, the first floor of this building, and I would always go to the bathroom and refill my water bottle on the third floor just to get those steps in, to have a little bit more movement throughout the day. So just finding ways to be really intentional about not allowing that one workout that you're doing, in the morning or at night to be the only movement that you're getting throughout the day. Now that I live in New York, I'm really lucky because it's such a walkable city. And so I take intentional time to walk each day. And I understand that I have a schedule that might be a little bit more flexible than other people's. And so if you are not able to do that, that's totally okay. If you're not able to go outside and walk for an hour or 2 hours, you can do whatever it is that you can do to move throughout the day. Set little timers, set reminders on your calendar, meet up with a coworker and walk on your lunch break. Do whatever it is you can to get moving throughout the day. I am kind of a numbers girly. It helps me to have a specific goal to shoot for. For some people, numbers can be really triggering and that's not their jam. And I totally respect that. But if you are somebody who needs kind of a goal to shoot for, it can help to quantify, okay, how many steps do I want to get in each day? And if I check halfway through and I'm not halfway to where I want to be stepwise, then that's a reminder to get up and move. So I like aiming to have 10 to 15,000 steps per day. I like to do this because I find that because I'm a more active person, just aiming for like that 8,000 or 8,500 steps per day doesn't really move the needle for me in terms of improving my fitness goals anymore. That is kind of the thing about fitness is like the more fit you become, you have to challenge yourself in other ways. So for me, I have a little bit of a higher step goal to push myself a little bit more because that 8 to 10,000 range just doesn't really do it for me anymore. But if you are somebody who is currently only walking 2,000 steps a day, then maybe aiming for 5,000 steps a day is a really great baseline for you. So you should really take into account where you are, what feels like a good kind of push and challenge, what feels good in your body, and let that be your guide for what your goal is. For me, that good sweet spot where I feel like I'm moving throughout the day and I'm challenging myself a little bit is that 10 to 15,000 step range. So that is what I aim for most days. If I'm having kind of an easier day, I'll aim for 10,000 steps. If I'm having a more active day, then I'll try to shoot for between 12 to 15,000 steps. Now, I also want to say, while you're walking, you cannot be wearing any old kind of shoe. If you were in your 30s and above like me, and your knees start talking, you can't be wearing any old kind of shoe on your walk, any old workout shoe, because they're not designed for that. So because I've been upping my steps, my favorite shoe to do this in is the Nike Motiva. I'm wearing them right now. If you are watching the YouTube video, you can see they're up on the screen right now. These are the Nike Motiva. They are the most comfortable walking shoe that you will wear because they're actually designed for walking. So they have a ton of cushion, which is great for those of us who are a little bit older. Our knees need a little more support, but also, like I said, I live in New York City. I'm walking around New York City all the time on pavement. I need something with cushion to support my joints so that my knees don't hurt. So the Nike Motiva has incredible cushion that is so comfortable. You feel like you're walking on clouds, and they're designed to almost have a little bit of a rocker on the bottom. So as you're walking, they propel you forward and make it easier for you to take your steps on your walk, if that makes sense. I get asked for recommendations about walking shoes all the time. I always say the Nike Motiva because it is so comfortable. It's really affordable. I have a few pairs that I rotate through on my walks each day. If you ever see me out walking, I'm going to be wearing my Nike Motiva. If you ever see me do a little fit check or get ready with me for a walk, I'm putting on my Nike Motiva. They are truly the most comfortable walking shoe. So I will link them in the show notes for you to check them out so that while you're going on your walks for your summer glow up, you can make sure that your feet and your joints are supported and healthy, happy, thriving. Now, in addition to the workouts that I am doing for my physical glow up, I'm working on my skin a little bit because, well, let's be honest, skin tells a lot about our age, and I want to make sure that mine is tight and right. So I'm pretty good about taking care of my skin on a basic basis when it comes to, washing it, removing my makeup, my sunscreen, my retinol. But I realized that I could do a little bit better with what I call face work. So that is really moving fluid out of my face, depuffing, kind of doing work to make sure the muscles in my face are strong and that I just am keeping everything lifted and sculpted. So I have been more intentional about doing face work as part of this summer glow up. So there have been a couple of things that I've been doing. One is I have been ice rolling more, especially during the summer. It feels so good on your face when you wake up in the morning and it's warm and you start rolling something nice and cool on your face. It feels so good and it wakes you up. I am somebody who has a naturally puffy face. I just get puffy under eyes. I get puffy cheeks. My whole face is just puffy most of the time, but especially when I first wake up. So having some ice on my face, I use an ice roller to really help depuff and move that fluid out from, the bags in my face has made such a difference. And then I also really like to gua sha. So I will start off with ice rolling on a bare face. Then after I ice roll, I will use my gua sha. I'll just use a face oil. I will use a gua sha to do motions to move the lymph up and out of my face and down my neck just to flush that out. And it's interesting because I notice red areas on my face, even though I don't push very hard, you do it very gently. I notice red areas on my face where some of the lymph has kind of built up and is moving. So it's kind of cool to see. And then I have a microcurrent device that I will then use to help strengthen the muscles in my face. And I have noticed that it has helped depuff my face so much and just gives me a little bit more of a snatched, sculpted face. So that has been a really big part of my physical glow up. And then in addition to my skincare work, I have been wanting to be really intentional about getting my diet together. Now, I think that I eat pretty well. especially maybe compared to the standard American diet. I am pretty cognizant of nutrients and just trying to eat things to support my body. But recently I met with a registered dietitian and learned that I actually wasn't eating enough throughout the day, especially for my activity level, and that my body would be more supported by more food. And I could also kind of feel it. One of the things that she noted was that I was going a long time in between meals, and that when we go too long in between meals, basically it increases our cortisol, which leads to our feeling more stressed. And so she recommended adding just some more snacks and some more satiating meals throughout the day so that my cortisol doesn't spike. And I totally have noticed a difference, particularly with adding some snacks and some extra protein in the afternoon. I haven't been feeling as stressed, which is super interesting. So in order to support that and to support my increased activity levels and just the muscle building that I'm doing right now, I'm aiming for 100 grams of protein a day. This has probably been the part of my summer glow up that I am still having the hardest time with, because it just is taking a lot of practice and a little bit more preparation. I find that more convenient foods and even just like snacks or snacking on fruit and veggies, which is amazing, and things that I usually do, still doesn't really have protein. And so I'm having to be really intentional about also incorporating protein into my meals and snacks. I'm trying to do better. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and on TikTok if you're interested in seeing the types of things that I'm coming up with to get more protein in. I'm getting better each week that I do it. I'm having more and more and coming up with more ideas to be creative. So follow me at Balance Less if you're curious about some of the meals and the snacks and things that I do that have more protein in them, because I've been sharing more things on social with just easy recipes, things that you can just screenshot if you need ideas, but really focusing on getting in a good source of protein, like 30 grams of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then having snacks with some sort of protein has been super, super helpful. And I've also noticed that I've started putting on a little bit of muscle. I don't want to brag, but these workouts and having a little bit more protein, I maybe added a few millimeters back there, a few millimeters on my booty. Millimeters aren't a lot. If you don't know, I'm joking, because it's barely, I notice it. I don't think anyone else would notice it, but I see it. And if I see it, that means y'all are going to see it soon. Okay. So if you too are also needing more help, just feeling more full, eating a little bit more and being a little more satiated, then incorporating more protein into your diet could be helpful, especially if you are lifting more, walking more. Your body is then breaking down your muscle and your tissues more, and it just needs that help repairing itself from the amino acids. So that is what I'm doing for my physical aspect of the glow up. Now I want to move into the mental and emotional aspect of the glow up. Okay. So for mental and emotional, the biggest thing that I've been doing is I have gone back to therapy. I have gone to therapy off and on several times in my life. The first time I went to therapy, I was in college. I was having debilitating anxiety and very physical panic attacks, and went to the campus counselor because I couldn't keep my ish together. That was my first experience with therapy. And then after that, I would only go to therapy under similar circumstances. Like if I was severely stressed, or if I had something very wrong happening, or if I was grieving, or, I would go to therapy under extreme duress. But I've never gone to therapy just to be like, hey, here are some things that have happened in my life. Here are things that I've been carrying, and I want to work through those things. So I started going back to therapy earlier this year for that very reason. It wasn't like I felt like I was under duress or anything was particularly wrong, or, I wasn't necessarily going through grief or anything pressing in that moment. I just wanted to do some inner work and some inner kind of tune-ups for myself. But what I realized is that talk therapy for me is just not that girl. I podcast for a living. I'm a professional yapper. I could tell you exactly what happened when I was 7 to traumatize me. Talking about it, for me, somebody who's already very aware of all of their things, just isn't super helpful. And I do think that that's something that's really common for people who are in the wellness space or who have been on a self-love personal development journey for a while is you start doing talk therapy and you talk about it and you talk about it and you're like, okay, I'm talking about it, but this isn't actually helping me get anywhere with it. It can be helpful to look at other types of therapies and somatic practices. So I recently went back to therapy. I found a Black woman therapist here in New York. She also happens to be from Seattle. So that's cool. If you don't know, I'm from Seattle. Being a Black person from a place like Seattle is a very specific experience. So having a therapist who is a Black woman who's from the city, same city I'm from, has actually been really great because I've been able to relate to her about a lot of things, or I've been able to share very specific instances of places I've been or things that have happened in my life, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's great. But she also specializes in EMDR and in somatic practices. So EMDR is a specific therapeutic technique that basically helps you process traumatic events in your life. And I really wanted to try that specific therapeutic modality. So I have been in therapy for a few months now. The first few months we have just been doing talk therapy so that she can understand my background, some of the traumatic events that have happened in my life, help with a diagnosis, and just map out what we need to do. But we're just now starting to get to the point where we're working through some things with EMDR. So the jury is still out on, the final product of how that's going to be, but I do feel really hopeful that it's going to help me process some things that are going on in my life. So by the time my birthday comes around, I hopefully will have processed a lot of things because I don't need to be carrying stuff that I've been carrying or that's happened to me when I was 8 or 13 or 19 or 25 or whatever. Yes, that happened. Yes, it's real, but do I need to bring that into my mid 30s and beyond? No. So I'm really excited to be in a good therapeutic situation where I am processing and working through those things in real time. If you also have gone to talk therapy, you talked about the things, you're aware of the things, and you need a little bit more help actually processing them because talking isn't doing it, definitely recommend checking out a therapist who specializes in something like EMDR or tapping or breath work or somatic practices to help you kind of release the trauma from your body, because that is what those practices are truly designed to do. Like first step is talking, and then second step is like processing and metabolizing and getting it out. So that has been the biggest thing that I've been doing for my mental and emotional health as part of the glow up, because I realized that I've been just carrying so much stuff that I no longer need. And I've also learned a lot about myself through this process that has been really, really helpful. We never stop growing. We never stop learning. We never stop learning about ourselves. To think that we stop, at 30 or whatever is wild, because life is long and we're always learning. And so it's an investment that I've made in myself. It definitely isn't not cheap, child, not cheap. I've been going bi-weekly. I would love to go weekly, but she being me, we ain't got weekly. It's not giving weekly on the budget, but it's been an investment in myself that has been very well worth it. So if it's something that you've been thinking about, I hope that inspires you to maybe try something new in the therapy space. Know that talk therapy isn't the only thing out there that can help you grow and process. And then the other thing that has been really helping me from a mental and emotional health standpoint has been journaling differently. So I have been taking a different approach to journaling. We recently had the journaling episode with Nia Jones of Inside Then Out, which was a great episode. Go back, listen to that if you are looking for more support with just building a foundational journaling practice. But I realized that over the past few months, a lot of my journaling has really been me just ranting and complaining. And that is totally fine. Journaling can be a safe space to do that and to just vent and to let things out. And I'm so grateful that I have done that in my journal as opposed to like on the internet. However, I also want to start using my journal to alchemize more good. So I've been focusing a lot more on positive journaling and writing more about the life that I want, the mental state that I want, and calling things in. And it has just felt a lot better than just ranting and complaining and doing those things. So like this morning, I wrote a really beautiful journal practice. And I was talking about, waking up in my beautiful brownstone with the sun streaming through the windows. And when I woke up, I have a loving fiance who makes me coffee just the way that I like it before I go to the gym. And I wrote about the work that I want to do and the businesses that I build and the businesses that I invest in. And those things are not necessarily true of my life today, but that very well could be my life a year ago. And so that is where I would rather pour my energy into alchemizing and creating that as opposed to complaining about things that, you know, don't need to be harped on anymore because I've vented, I've complained enough. I complain a lot. And so I'm learning how to take a beat and focus more on what it is that I want instead of what it is that I don't want. So those are the mental and emotional things that I've been doing as part of the glow up. And then last, we have kind of our whimsical play, spiritual, fun side. And this is kind of encompassing everything. So there's one practice in this that is a little bit different from what I've mentioned. And then there's a few other practices that play off of the physical and emotional. So the one extra practice that I put in my like whimsical fun category or pillar of the glow up is visualization. Now, I struggle so much with visualization because I'm not a visual girly. I am a words girly. This is why I write. This is why I talk. This is why I verbalize, because I'm so much better with words than I am with visuals. Okay. We all have our gifts. We all have our strengths. Something that I've wanted for a really long time is a coach or like mentor or life coach. And I keep getting on discovery calls with these life coaches, and they keep bringing me through these weird visualization exercises that I can't do, where they're like, visualize something heavy on your soul in a river rock that's blocking your, and I literally can't do it. My brain simply does not work that way. And so I've yet to find a coach because I have not yet found a coach that doesn't try to make me do stuff like that. However, the mini visualization practices that I've been doing on my own have been kind of an extension of my journaling practice. So I will write out that best case scenario. I'll write out that dream life or morning. I'll write it out in my journal, and then I'll sit in silence for a few minutes and I will replay what I wrote in my head, visualizing all of it to come to life. So I will visualize that brownstone with the sun streaming in. I will visualize my future partner handing me, the coffee that he makes me in the morning. I will visualize me being in these meetings, making decisions and running, these businesses. I'll sit and I'll visualize it and almost rehearse it so that when those things actually come to fruition, I will feel comfortable and capable and worthy of them. So that is a form of visualization that is working a little bit better for me and that I'm having an easier time wrapping my head around, as opposed to like picture the river rock that represents everything that's unsaid. That I can't do, but like imagining my future life, I can do. So I've been pairing that with the positive journaling as kind of a whimsical, fun practice of like, oh, I get to kind of escape current reality and move into this other reality that feels more fun and more inviting. And like, that's where I want to be. And since I started doing that, I have noticed a shift in my own energy where I just feel a little bit lighter and a little bit less intense, because I don't know if y'all know, I'm kind of I can be a little bit of an intense person IRL, and I'm working on that, but it's helped me just be a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more fun in how I manifest and do things. And it's also making me be a little bit less intense with goals. And it's helping me approach my career and life very differently, where it's like before, I thought I have to make this much money each month. I have to have this many podcast listeners this month. If I have to have this many Instagram followers, and if enough people don't engage with this, then I'm not good at my job and I can't do this and I can't do that. And it was very fear-based. And now I'm moving into this space of okay, why don't I try this? Everything is an experiment. Why don't I try doing this type of podcast episode? Or why don't I try doing this type of content and see how the audience responds to it? Or wouldn't it be cool if I built this kind of business and I'm just going to try it and just do it for the plot and see how it goes, as opposed to being like, I have to do this. It has to be this successful. I have to make this much money. It's been a really big brain shift and rewire for me that I think has been really important for my glow up, because like honestly, nobody wants to be around a person who is just super heavy energy, intense, like beating down the door all the time about everything. And I have enough self-awareness to know that I was kind of being that person for a long time. And in some ways it did serve me. But like I said at the beginning of this episode, I really think glowing up is about knowing when something is no longer serving you and knowing when to pivot. And so I've really been leaning a little bit more into my like Libra energy. I have a Libra rising in Venus, of like that whimsical kind of feminine, just like trying things out and flowing with it and doing things for the plot and seeing where they go. And it's been making the successes a little bit more fun. And it's also been making the failures not feel so intense, because everything is an experiment and everything is just trying it and seeing what sticks. And if it sticks, great, we'll celebrate. And if not, okay, it was an experiment and we just tried it and we're going to move on. And I would say that that's probably been the biggest difference in my mindset over the past few months today versus the last solo episode I did, which was my mental health check-in. A few months ago, I recorded that episode a ways before it was released. Since then, I've been able to really pour into myself in a lot of ways where I now today don't feel as heavy as I felt then. And it has helped me so, so much. And so if you can relate to any part of that, I really invite you to see how can you make things a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more playful, and just seeing things as an experiment. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then you can go back to the drawing board. And I think it takes away from that heaviness that we can feel that can sometimes get in the way of our own glow. And then the last thing for this pillar of like whimsical fun play is truly allowing myself to play more. So another element of fitness, which I didn't necessarily say this in the physical glow up section, because it almost to me is a little bit more spiritual and soul giving, is I've also just been having a little bit more fun with my workouts and with my movement outside of my structured workout plan of doing my strength training, steps, and Pilates. So I've been doing a little bit more running, and I've been doing that solely to make new friends. I didn't realize that in New York, the main way you make friends is by running. That seems to be like the main way to meet people. And I see all these groups running and it looks so fun and communal. And so I had not run since the last half marathon I did in 2014. But this year I've been running probably like once a month. I'll hop in a running group and just go run a 5K or something just to be around other people. And of course, it's a great way to get steps in. It's really good for your heart. Heart health is very important to me, because that is something that people in my family have succumbed to at a young age. So like that's top priority, but it's also a good way to meet people and make friends. And so I see that as more of like whimsical, fun, play, social, just like not taking things too seriously, not having to be fast, not having it be any kind of way, but just a way to connect and plug into community. So things like hopping in group runs have been really fun, doing dance classes that are more so just about self-expression and just moving your body any kind of way as opposed to intense choreography. Hopping in and playing things like sports and just trying new workout classes to move in fun, different ways. And again, just be in community and connect with people has been more so a part of my fun pillar than the workout pillar. And it's been serving me really, really well. And I have met cool people, and it has been a good way to just get to know my new environment a bit more and reframe my relationship with exercise in a different way that I think has just been more fun and has been really helpful for my energy. And then the last thing for this pillar is just being really focused on having a fun summer. So I have not had a fun summer since 2018. That was the last time I felt like I had a fun summer of like being social and being outside. Part of that was the pandemic. Part of that was being in LA and having kind of a hard time making plans and building community there. And so I am ready for my first kind of route of exploration and fun and play. And so I've been doing a lot of that this summer. And I also consider that to be a big part of my glow up because I think that there's nothing more attractive than curiosity. And when we can be curious about the world around us, whether we're in a new place or whether we're meeting new people or we're seeking out new experiences, I actually think that that is like the most attractive thing that anyone can do. So I've taken a lot of curiosity to this new season in my new city because this is also just kind of the time where outside opens up and everybody kind of comes alive and we're all doing things and it's very activity focused and just being really focused on trying new things and being curious about who I am in this new environment that I'm in. And it's just opened up a whole new world. And I felt so much more fun and light and free and playful. And it's something that I plan to continue all summer long, culminating in this birthday of mine coming up. But also, like, who doesn't want to feel fun and flirty and like you're having a good time during the summer? So that's been another big part of how I'm glowing up over the next couple of months. So if you are working on your own version of a summer glow up, I highly recommend you taking a similar approach of figuring out what is going to help you feel the best physically, what is going to help you feel the best mentally and emotionally, and then what's just going to be fun and flirty and good for your soul. Those are the three pillars. And it, again, doesn't have to be mine. Like, you don't have to do Pilates twice a week because I do Pilates twice a week. You don't have to get 15,000 steps a day because that's what I shoot for. If you don't want to gua sha, don't do it. If you don't want to go to therapy, don't do it. Like, you know what's best for you. I just recommend following that structure to make sure you're covering all of your bases of what is going to be most helpful and what is going to serve you. So maybe take out your notes app, take out a notebook and a piece of paper and write down what would help me physically feel my best over the next 2 to 3 months? What would help me mentally feel my best over the next 2 to 3 months? What do I need to let go of? What is no longer serving me? Who is no longer serving me? And then for the fun category, what does fun mean to you? Who are you when you are light and when you are playful and when you are allowing yourself to be curious and flirty and free? What activities do you like to do? Who do you like to be around? How do you like to dress? Who are you in that space? And what are some things that you can do to feel more like that more often? So if you can kind of allow that to guide your own personal plan for wellness, for your own glow up, if you want to call it that, for your own hot girl summer, if you want to call it that, I think that you could have a really great couple of months. And I also think that focusing on your wellness during the summer is fantastic because then when you get into the fall, you can just maintain what you're doing. You've already built the habits. You've done the things when you had lots of energy and the days were long. And then you can just maintain it as we move into fall and winter. Okay, so that is what I have for you today for this episode, all about how to have your best summer, how to be your healthiest, happiest, hottest self this summer. If you liked this episode, please make sure that you subscribe. You can subscribe on Apple, you can subscribe on Spotify, you can subscribe on YouTube, you can connect with me on social media, on Instagram or on TikTok at Balance Less. And a huge thanks to Nike for partnering with this episode. So as you are doing your walks this summer as a part of that physical self-care pillar, make sure you check out the Nike Motiva. It is an amazing walking shoe that will power all of your steps this summer and beyond. And I will also just link my other Nike favorites in the show notes for you to check out. Thank you so much for tuning into this bonus episode, and I will see you in the next one.